You're listening to Flip Empire, the show committed to helping real estate entrepreneurs who want to build their empire without sacrificing their life. Your success and freedom starts now with your host, Alex Pardo.
Here we go. Welcome. I am back from Punta Cana, where Steve and I hosted our Ascend Mastermind Retreat, and it was an unbelievable, unforgettable, just an incredible experience all the way around. I'm going to share with you on today's podcast episode. I'm going to take you behind the scenes, kind of let you be a fly in the wall of an in-depth conversation we had late night, the day before we were leaving. And I want to go ahead and start by sharing this quote with you by Ralph Waldo Emerson. "The mind, once stretched by a new idea, never returns to its original dimensions." Let me go ahead and repeat that. "The mind, once stretched by a new idea, never returns to its original dimensions." I want to start off today's podcast episode by that, because that was a theme that I took away from hosting and running this with Steve, and a lot of the conversations we had with our members, with their families. By the way, shout out to the Ascend community. It hit me between the eyes bigger than it's ever hit me before, that one of the things that separates our community from just about everything else out there is the word family. And the ability for our members to bring their family, have them interact with us and our entire community. My girls walked away with new friendships. My girls walked away with deeper relationships. We walked away with deeper relationships. And that's really what it's all about. And I think that ties in perfectly to the quote by Ralph Waldo Emerson. Another way that I like to put it is, once a mind expands, it never wants to contract, right? Once a mind expands, it never wants to contract. So we were having a conversation, myself, Brittany and Leon Thompson, Josh and Casey Bacon, and Tracy Royce. We watched a show on the last night. It was like Dominican night, and they did a pretty awesome show. The resort, this all-inclusive resort, was pretty incredible. And there was a lot of fantastic entertainment. So aside from the fact that we got to mastermind in the morning for a couple of days, just the time spent outside of the mastermind room, informally mastermind, again, deepening and building tighter and stronger relationships and bonds. And just one of those times was after a show, the night before most of us were leaving. We had a conversation, and the conversation started by, somebody asked like, "Hey, what's the scariest thing you've ever done that you were happy and grateful that you ended up doing?" Right. And there was a variety of answers, and I won't share what some of those were, but, somehow the conversation morphed into, hey, what are the things that you never thought you'd want to do or have, that now that you have them, you would never want to go back? And I'll share with you a perfect example. One of the things that it became funny inside joke, right? But we started talking about heated toilet seats. As odd as that may sound. And you might be thinking to yourself, well, damn, Alex, not a very profound, in-depth conversation. It actually was. But the reason it was funny is because somehow it came up. I started talking about the house that my wife and I purchased back in December. And we're not even really fully done rehabbing it. We're just done with the inside. But a couple of friends of mine had shared that, hey, you got to get these heated toilet seats from Toto. I don't even know how to say it in English. Toto is the name of the company. Toto seats. And it's this heated seat that basically warms your cheeks and your butt, and it deodorizes the toilet, and it cleans your butt, and all this kind of stuff, right? And it was like, I don't know, it was like $800, $1,000. Initially, it was met with resistance. I'm like, dude, I'm not going to spend close to $1,000 on just a seat that warms my butt, right? I mean, as funny as that may sound, sure enough, a couple people started telling me, went to the store with my wife. My wife was resistant. I'm like, we've gone all out with everything else. Like, let's just do it. Well, now that we have heated seats in our house, I never want to sit on a toilet that is not heated. As bougie and as insert word that I can't think of right now as that may sound, it's crazy. I went 41 years of my life, almost 41 years of my life, really not using heated toilet seats. And for the last month and a half that I've had a heated toilet seat, I never want to go back. And it never experienced it. It's pretty cool. But let's put it this way. It's better than a non-heated toilet seat. And Tracy Royce and I were the only ones we were kind of on an island by ourselves. And everybody else was looking at us like we had like 6 heads. They're like, wait a second, like your seat it heats up and it does all this type of stuff. And there was a lot of jokes in between, as you can imagine. And then I kind of flipped it around on them because I was having a hard time selling them on why they should consider getting heated toilet seats, especially if you live in an area where the winters are brutal. But I then flipped the question around on them and I said, can't you think of something in your business or your life that you never had, now you do have, and now that you've experienced it, now that you're used to that standard, you never want to go back? And then that led to a deeper conversation about the Ralph Waldo Emerson quote, the mind once stretched by a new idea never returns to its original dimensions. Or the way that I like to say it is that once a mind expands, it never wants to contract. A good friend of mine, has shared a story about how his mentor years ago challenged him to upgrade from coach seats to first class. And, one of the things that he used to always do, he used to just not be comfortable with paying the extra $200, $300, $400, $500, $600 to upgrade from coach to first class. And then his coach kept pushing him, like, do it, because once you experience first class, you never want to go back to coach. And sure enough, he did it. Well, today he flies private. Today, he doesn't fly first class. He flies private because he always kept stretching himself. Now, here's the caveat. Obviously, be smart, use sound judgment. Nobody's telling you to go out and live completely above your means and do something that is going to put you in a bad position, to put you in a place where, it's hard to recover from. So you got to be smart. But I think there is a lot of value in stretching yourself and putting yourself in a position where you can experience things that maybe you don't necessarily feel it's worth it until you actually experience it. And then you don't want to go back. So whether it's a heated toilet seat example, whether it's upgrading from commercial to first class or first class to private, I remember when my wife and I met, I used to, for years, this is going back a couple decades now, I've always had somebody come to my house and wash my cars every couple of weeks. I remember in the late 90s, I used to go to car washes and I would sit around for an hour and a half and just wait for them to wash my car. And this is prior to like the smartphones and all that. And I was just kind of sitting around and I was like, this is such a waste of time. And at the time, I wasn't really as much into personal development and reading and et cetera, et cetera. So I used to always tell myself, like, how can I make this simple? And then I found out about mobile car washes. And when my wife and I met, I remember we were in my apartment in Brickell and I told her, I said, oh, let's just wait another 15, 20 minutes because the mobile car wash guy is going to come. And she kind of laughed at me and she's like, what do you mean your mobile car wash guy? And I'm like, well, yeah, I have a guy come and he washes my car. And she couldn't really wrap her head around that. And then now she completely understands. And pretty much ever since we met, she's gotten her car washed by a mobile car wash guy. So, and now she can't live without it, right? It's like one of those things that it's so convenient, it's so practical that she would never want to go back. Instacart is another example of that. We have Instacart where I used to hate going to Publix and going to the grocery store. And now we use Instacart for everything. So think about how you can intentionally and purposely put yourself in a position where it forces you to expand your mind so that you never want to go back. And this could be an experience that maybe you've wanted to do. When we went to Greece last year, we initially, when my wife was planning it, we were looking at different hotels in the 5 different islands that we were going to go hopping around. And then we started looking at villas and the private villas with the private pool, infinity pool overlooking the Mediterranean, et cetera. Those were, I don't know, probably another $300 to $400 a night. In some cases more. And we decided, like, let's splurge, let's go for it. And now that we've experienced that, we're actually considering doing a similar trip next year along the Amalfi Coast in Italy. And we're looking at villas. We're not looking at hotels. Now, I'm grateful and I'm blessed that we're in a position where we can do that. But had I not done that, I probably would have been looking at hotels. And I can tell you that the extra $200, $300 a night that we would have spent certainly wasn't going to like break us or anything, forced me to stretch. And now we've thought bigger. We've experienced that. And something interesting happens when you put yourself in those types of environments. Number one, you are more likely to connect with others who are able to afford those types of things, which may or may not lead to a relationship. It may or may not lead to business, but you're putting yourself in an environment of other people who think big as well. Number two, it forces you to think big. When you start to think big, you start to ask yourself different questions. When you ask yourself different questions, your mind goes to work on how to answer those questions. I'll share with you, this is going to be the podcast episode filled with personal examples, but I was, yesterday, my wife and I spent some time with a new friend, somebody who we got introduced to, who is just a fantastic person. And we were having a conversation, and somehow the conversation came up about the fact that on our vision board, or on our vision, really, my wife and I have always wanted to get a house on the water in the Keys, specifically like Key Largo, something that's no more than an hour and 15 minutes away from Miami. We've always wanted it with a boat lift on the water. And, we're looking for your classic Key style home that's like on stilts. And just, we love the Keys. We love that area. And she opened up to us and shared how back in 2016, her and her husband ended up buying their dream home in the Keys. And she showed us pictures. When she showed us pictures, I was immediately met with this surge of inspiration, because it was a picture of their backyard. They had just put a brand new pool. It was like an infinity pool overlooking the water. And what really jumped out at me is that they had a beach in their backyard. And in the picture, you saw someone like their friends and family member, like in the water, kind of on the shore with some seats. And the little mini beach was hugged by like a long pier where you could just kind of walk and fish. And they had a sunset view and the whole nine. My mind in that moment instantly expanded. I no longer wanted a house on the water in the Keys. I wanted a house on the water in the Keys with a beach. I wanted a beachfront house. And so I've started thinking differently already just as a result of that. And by the way, I think it's important to share that I started thinking differently, and I wanted that, not because she had it, not because somebody else wanted it, but because I realized that I was filtering what I truly wanted based on our circumstances, right? Like getting a house on the water in the Keys seems very doable to me. I never considered a beach house, like a house like literally on the beach, because I think my mind always assumed that was like a $5 to $10 million home. And like there's just other priorities. Like I never saw myself even considering wanting to go down that path until I saw that picture and I saw what it represented as far as time with friends and family and experience and memories. And there's a certain part of me that believes like, if you can, then you must. Right. The flip side of that is just because you can doesn't mean you necessarily should. So again, use your judgment as to which one to apply. But I've all of a sudden expanded my thinking. I now believe it's possible. And I don't necessarily know how I'm going to get that, but I'm clear on what I want, why I want it. My subconscious and conscious can go to work to make that a reality. Just by mere fact that I'm sharing this with you on the podcast, and 40, 50,000 people are going to hear it, if probably more in the coming months. It's putting it out there. It's taking an internal desire and externalizing it, putting it out in the universe. Of course, I got to do my part. I got to get to work, and I got to be very strategic with how I go about it. But I don't even know how it's going to happen. I just have this internal confidence and belief that it will happen. So I really want you to start thinking bigger. I want you to intentionally put yourself in a place and an environment where it forces your mind to expand. And once that happens and you experience it, whether it's as something as funny as a heated toilet seat, or experiencing first class, possibly even flying private, staying in in a nice Airbnb villa, seeing something that someone has and just putting yourself in that position. In fact, she invited us to her place, which I hope to be able to visit at some point. And we've already started talking about now, going to the Keys at some point soon when we get back from our next trip, and just driving around and just looking for certain areas, like starting to really hone in and make this a reality. Just get crystal clear on what we want, where we want it. We understand why we want it, and then go from there. And that's how you can manifest a thought, make it a reality by verbalizing it, getting crystal clear, putting it on paper, putting it out there to the universe, whether it's publicly, like on a podcast, whether it's on social media, or whether it's with just close family members and friends who will uplift and encourage you and support you and won't try to drag you down. So there's something to be said for that 10x thinking, because once you start thinking bigger, it forces you to ask different questions, and your mind goes to work on ways to make whatever it is that you want or desire, make it a reality. The last thing I just want to encourage you with is make sure that you are not just forcing your mind to stretch and expand, but also make sure that you are immersing yourself in the right communities, in the right groups, the right masterminds of people who are going to elevate your thinking. Right. That's one of the things that we experienced in Punta Cana at Ascend is, when we're out late at night talking, having conversation, sharing laughs, creating memories, when we're in the mastermind room together, connecting, collaborating, contributing to each other, you start to think different. You start to not just expand your thinking, but you get new, especially when you walk into those rooms with humility. And you walk into those rooms wanting to share, contribute, and give, and you know that everybody else has that mindset like they do in Ascend, you walk out just completely filled in every sense of the word. Filled with gratitude, filled with knowledge, filled with other people's experiences, filled with relationship. And it's just pretty incredible what can happen. So I want to leave you with that on this particular episode. Thank you so much in advance for continuing to support the Flip Empire show. I mean, just how it grows month over month is extremely humbling. I want to take a second to recognize our entire Ascend community for just being such awesome, incredible people and being such inspiring entrepreneurs that are out to not just grow their life and their business, but that also have a strong desire to impact others and leave their mark on this world. So shout out to you, Ascend. Love you guys, and look forward to connecting with you on the next one. Speaking of, by the way, if you want to reach out to Steve and I to talk about Ascend, ascendyoursuccess.com. Short video you can watch there, and then you can go through the application process, which won't take much time. Other than that, I look forward to connecting on the next episode. Take care. Hope you enjoyed that episode. But before you go, I've had a lot of people recently reach out to me wanting to learn more about Ascend, wanting to understand how the mastermind component works, how the coaching relationship works. And so right now we're actually on a waiting list. But what I would encourage you to do is if you think you're the right fit and you think you could benefit from being a part of our community, head over to ascendyoursuccess.com, watch the short video, and then just click the apply to join button below. And then we'll be in contact with you if and when a spot opens up. So really appreciate you listening to Flip Empire here. And I look forward to connecting with you on the next show. Take care.